And there we are.
There we are.
Welcome. Welcome back on another magical Monday night here on Geek News Now, MCU Mondays. I'm your host, Chris, joined as I often always am, actually, by my co-host, Debbie. Debbie! How are you tonight?
Hello, Marvel Geeks.
Ready to talk about some Miss Marvel and some Thor?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I think we all are. We're also joined by David down below us, as we so often are. David, of course, another member of the Geek News Now team and the host of the Thursday night Star Wars Cantina Happy Hour. David, how you doing?
Good. I'm good. Finally got to see Thor, so
glad to have you here. Glad you could manage to see Thor, so now we can actually talk about it.
I'll save my comments.
We'll get there. We're also joined by our guest tonight, Mr. Shaw, down below me. He is a member of the Geek News Now team, as well as a member of the Geek Gauntlet. Shaw, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing? How you doing?
Doing excellent. Glad to be here. Glad to have you on so we can talk about the exciting developments that we've had with Thor and Miss Marvel.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to get to that in just a second. We're going to talk about Miss Marvel first, then we're going to talk about Thor. But before we do that, we got to have our theme song, because it's just not an episode of MCU Mondays unless we have our theme song.
Theme song guy.
Oh, yeah! It's MCU Mondays on Geek News Now. We're talking about Marvel Geek News Now. Movies and TV and comics, news, opinions, breaking news and reviews. It's Geek News Now. It's hilarious.
Here we are.
Love it.
Glad to be here. And so let's start off talking about Miss Marvel. Season finale happened. It occurred. And we finally, she's back in America now, and she has to deal with the damage control stuff. What were your guys' thoughts on how this episode played out?
I was glad to see that it wasn't just damage control. It was just one idiot within damage control.
Because
I was like, surely the whole organization is not this bad. It's got to be just one person.
and we talked about that past couple of weeks. I know I for sure have been ranting about that several times, that this damage control is doing more damage than the damage that they're controlling. And even at the beginning of the episode, you have the woman talking to the guy. She's like, this is why I hate it when the wrong kind of people get superpowers, kids. And I'm like, whose drone rocket blew up the scene that you're at? Yours. That's why I hate it when idiots have rocket-powered drones.
Yeah, I think Agent Devers was definitely on a power trip of some sort.
Well, yeah, especially when the person who's in charge above her said no, and she said, I'm just going to ignore that completely.
Yep.
Like,
we have a rogue agent.
Get to the point. Yeah, like, how did you get to this point in the hierarchy of damage control is one thing I want to know. But also, I still am not giving damage control as a whole a pass. Because like we said, we had the super secure prison, supposedly, that these clandestines just walk out of. She wasn't there to screw that up. That's just the organization as a whole. I don't understand it. They're not doing a great job. And I thought there was no scene where they sat down and talked to her or really found out who she is.
No, they just kind of let it go.
They're just like, all right, we're going to back off because public opinion has turned against us. And I was
Well, when you have the whole community standing up to you, not good optics. I'm glad the community did do that. Including the cops. That was awesome.
Yep, PR is a big thing.
What did you think about that shot? It actually kind of reminded me of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, when the one guy goes, "They're just people." It's like, this is what happens when a bunch of people team up against you. Yeah. Turns out there is such a thing as bad press. I'm like, you're just figuring this out now? Yeah.
And honestly, too, in today's society where everybody has a camera with them all the time and they are connected to literally hundreds of thousands of people at a time, you think that's going to fly under the radar? Bull.
And
you use those cameras. You use them. I think he said in the Avengers, if it's got a camera on it, we have eyes.
Yep.
I don't really think she cared. She was just on such a power trip attitude. I don't think she really cared. She was just wanting to do.
And she wanted credit for taking down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whoever.
Trying to move up the ladder. Or
I kind of wish we had a little more background on her. Just because, I mean, when they did when we had Moon Knight and what's his name was there was a lot of background on him. We knew who he was. We knew what his motivations were. We knew why he was doing what he was doing. With her, it was just kind of like she's there and she's the bad guy, and that's
she's
all
an agent of damage control.
Yeah. But again, I'm like Debbie said, why is she doing what she's doing? Why is she on this power trip? Why
disobey those orders? Like, those were sound orders. Even when he gave them, it wasn't like he was backing down because he was afraid. It's just like, there's a better way to handle this situation than to go in guns blazing. And she's like, nah, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. And maybe she's doesn't like being under that guy's thumb or being under that guy's authority. And she thought if she could take down these guys, and it's just a kid, these kids, it's just some kids with superpowers. We're the people that apparently deal with people with superpowers. Even though, again, so far, all I've seen from this show is that you're terrible at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why you would be so arrogant as to think, we can take them down easy. You haven't been able to yet. Nothing you've done this entire time has been in any way effective.
They're just setting her up for her own spin-off show.
Yeah, it's like, now you know why she's become a villain. She's upset about what happened when she was an idiot. That's not like someone else ruined your life. It's like, Miss Marvel, you ruined my life. And it's like, no, you ruined your own life being incompetent trying to catch her. Stop blaming other people for your own incompetence. Damage control. Come on. Get out of here. The other guy, though, that was mad at her on the phone, he's the guy from Spider-Man. I think he might have a little bit better of a head on his shoulders. I mean, he was clearly trying to take the better route from the beginning there.
Yeah.
Yep.
But my God, I mean, what a mess Damage Control made. Again, this last episode, I said last week, I was like, there better be some sort of explanation for why Damage Control is horrifically bad at controlling damage. And what happened? Okay, there's an incompetent agent, sure, but it still doesn't explain why the entire organization is just terrible. And maybe they'll get into that some more with She-Hulk, because we've already seen in the trailer that their prison facility is going to be a part of that show. So we're going to get more of Damage Control. But okay, the Damage Control prison, that's where they keep Abomination. He has to just be hanging out there on purpose, because if the clandestine can get out, Abomination
could tear everything up. Just tear it up and walk. He'd split the walls and walk out.
Just bam. Exactly. He must have some sort of deal going. That's what I want to hear more about. That's kind of what I'm more interested at this point.
Well,
one of the things.
You do know that the Thunderbolts is coming.
Thunderbolts.
Yes. Yeah, that was announced.
Yep, Thunderbolts. I mean, there's a lot of things on the horizon that this ties into, at least. But of course, that's Marvel. They try and tie everything into everything else. So the movie was about mid as can be. I think he's talking about Thor. We're going to get there. We're talking about Miss Marvel right now. And that's an interesting take on it. I'm interested. I can't wait to talk about Thor, actually, but we got more to talk about with Miss Marvel, so we're going to get there. David and Debbie, you mentioned the cameras and how if it's going to be on camera, we're going to use it. Zoe came back into play with her millions of followers and getting the community involved. That's how everyone knew to show up. And I think that, and then like the Twitter or the TikTok thing at the end where everyone was on TikTok, I was like, this is mildly cringe. But I think it was also partway supposed to be that.
Yeah.
And it's also part of that thing where it's like this was made for probably the younger generation that's more involved with TikTok and things like that.
Yep.
I don't think it necessarily was made for that audience, but I think
maybe aimed more in that direction.
Well, because of who the hero was. I mean, she's a teenager. They use TikTok. That's what they do. I mean, so to put that in there, yeah, you're going to rope in some of that younger audience, but it's also just showing, hey, this is how they function. This is what they do. And
that's how what Zoe was saying when she was sending out that like distress message, if you will, that was right onto social media, and she's like, share it, tag it, message it to people, make this. And that's just, it is something amazing about literally society today, is just how fast word can spread from the other side of the world to here, from here to that. Like, just the rapid exchange of information is crazier than ever. What did we think about Cameron's powers versus Kamala's powers? I want to ask Debbie and I want to ask Shah, because Debbie, you were mentioning how his powers were to make things explode. It looked like
he can make them explode if he wants,
but it looked like some other stuff was happening.
Yeah, it kind of looked like, lack for better words, jagged glass, maybe.
Yeah, and that's what hers are kind of. Well, they call it the hard light, and it seems like he has a different kind, but his seem more like random spikes of energy, whereas she's like making a fist and she can control what she's doing, where his is just.
Well, he hasn't had his for very long, so.
And that made part of it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We had the whole training montage in the first episode, or second episode.
And it's been a few episodes since then too.
What was that?
And it's been a few episodes since the training montage, so she's learning more.
Yeah, she's definitely had more experience, more time with it. I mean, he's had his for a day while on the run, and his powers came from a different source. It's not like she has the bangle, and maybe that helps. That definitely unlocked her connection to the newer and allows her to use it. He got his powers from when his mother died, closing the veil or whatever. So that's a completely different way that he got his powers. Even if they are similar powers, he got them in a very different way.
Maybe that bangle is kind of like Mjolnir, to where, he said that in Ragnarok. He was like, you're not the god of hammers, you're the god of thunder. Mjolnir is just a tool to focus your powers, and maybe that's what this bangle is acting as. Is she's got the power, she can do it, but because she's got this bangle, she has a way to harness it and control it more than he does.
Now, speaking of the bangle and the control, I want to skip to the end credit scene where Captain Marvel. Okay, what happened there? Do we want to shout at you?
Confirmed. That wasn't her shapeshifting into Captain Marvel. That was her swapping with Captain Marvel.
Teleportation of some sort. Yeah, swapping places.
Yeah, that was confirmed. Especially when she looked at run around the room. That reaction also. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, because she looks down and she sees the posters and everything, and that's more of a reaction of, oh crap, where am I? Exactly. As opposed to, why do I look like Captain Marvel? It wasn't, why do I look like this? It's, where am I? And so that raises other questions like, where is Kamala at this point? Did she get teleported across?
I kind of wonder if Captain Marvel might have come across the other bangle, and maybe that's why it activated, and then it activated Kamala.
Wearing something on her wrist, wasn't she?
I didn't see anything on her wrist, but she was,
Let's take a look at that. Let's see. I have the scene right over here. I
think she just had on gloves.
Yeah, fingerless gloves. Probably more tended to Kamala's thinking about her, probably.
Chris is watching Disney Plus while we've got a show going on. Did he freeze? Is he frozen?
Do you want to watch this next? No. Do you want to know?
I think he's frozen.
Yep, he's frozen.
See, that's what happens when you watch Disney Plus. you're streaming while you're trying to stream.
Anyway, that's my theory. I think she was either near it, holding it.
Well, and honestly too, because she said, if you remember the end of Shang-Chi, and they're talking about the ring, she was like, "I've never seen anything like this in this universe or the next." Maybe she's been flying around looking for
something
similar, and she found it within the bangle, and we know that that's from a different dimension.
Yep, true.
Oh, there he is. So maybe that's why she has no knowledge of it, of exactly what the rings are. And like I said, she's found the other bangle, and she now knows, oh, okay, this is what this is. Let me touch it, and oops. Anyway.
Did you find your clip, Chris?
And no, I was actually just going to watch the very end of the episode. I had that lined up, and then it was like, oh, we'll turn on Captain Marvel instead. And then my internet was like, hey, let's just disconnect right in the middle of the live stream. We haven't had any problems all day, but now he's live streaming, so let's do it now. And I'm like, no, internet, don't do that. And the internet's like, screw you, man. So that was fun. But anyway, there's some other surprises that came with the end of Miss Marvel. For one thing, also I was going to mention with her powers and Kamran's powers, they're not exactly the same. Like when Miss Marvel first came into the comic scene, she stretched. She was like Mr. Fantastic. And they kind of changed that to the energy projection thing, and then also kind of combined it because she said embiggen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that just reminded me of The Simpsons. A noble spirit embiggens. Embiggen, is that really a actual? Embiggen's a perfectly cromulent word. Cromulent's not a word either. Simpsons is amazing. But anyway, she said embiggen and I lost it. But I mean, it kind of combines the stretchy power with the energy projection. So that's
neat.
You're staying somewhat true to the source material.
So the thing with Kamran, like it sounded like when Debbie, because I don't know his original powers, but it's like he can make things explode. That sounds so much like Gambit that it's ridiculous. Because Gambit's whole thing is he charges something with energy and then he can make it explode. Now everyone thinks that he can just do it with like playing cards, but that's just the thing that he normally uses. He can do it to anything, and the bigger it is, the bigger the explosion. Which is why he's actually one of the more powerful mutants out there.
Almost definitely.
Speaking of mutants, since we're on the subject, this is how she's going to be the first mutant in 616, and then you can argue with her about whether it's 616 or not, but Feige says it is. So
Feige said a long time ago it was like 600 something or other, or like at least 60 or something like that.
It's definitely, I think she even mentioned that at a premiere. I was reading an article. She looked over at Kevin Feige and he just went like this. Or like gave her because she's always complaining about how it can't be 616 because that's the comic universe or this, that, and the other thing. But either way, Bruno is mentioning, he was like, well, your brother said, could he get superpowers too, since she did? And he's like, I think your DNA was still different than the rest of your family's. There's something different, like some sort of mutation. And then there was a musical cue that literally just went, which is, of course, part of the X-Men. Classic X-Men theme. So that is a huge shot. I know you've been wanting to talk about that. So what are your thoughts on that?
So when the show began, I was initially thinking, okay, the change of powers, fine, but if by the end of the series they don't reveal that she's an Inhuman, I'm gonna be pissed. We get to this part, which I had completely forgotten about, thinking about that, and then we found out she's, the mutant thing, which I think is an okay substitute. I still wish they would do the Inhumans, but still, this is. I mean, I know a lot of people are like either for this or against this, so I'm okay with it. What are you guys' thoughts on the change?
Well, whoever was head of Marvel Entertainment at that time, I can't remember his name. It wasn't Kevin.
Bob Iger, I think.
Who?
Bob Iger, I think.
No, not Disney. He was head of Marvel Entertainment. But he was the one that introduced the Inhumans. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he was part of the comics and, wanted to make it into, TV series or whatever, because they had the Inhumans TV series, which flopped. But Kevin Feige hated the Inhumans, and he really didn't particularly like this guy. And I think this was his way of saying,
thumbing his nose at it.
Just based off the fact that the Inhuman show did not do well, and that they might have just been trying to think, well, from a marketing standpoint, we don't want her. What do we want? What would we prefer her to be associated with? Would we want casual fans to be talking about her as an Inhuman, or would we want people talking about the mutants? People are already excited for the mutants. People are already excited for the X-Men. They're wondering where it's going to show up, when it's going to show up, how it's going to show up. The Inhumans, most people are just like, well, if you're an Inhumans fan, maybe you care about Inhumans and want to see them done right. But most people there's more people more excited about X-Men. So I think that's just if there's no, and since this is a fairly new character, even by comic standards, then they can still feel kind of, and they're changing stuff up about it. It's not like this character has a past that has been exactly the same for 70 years of comics. No, this character's been around maybe for 20 years and
a lot less, and they've already changed it several times. So what's the big deal changing it again if it's going to be an overall plus for them as far as marketing, word of mouth, everything else? Because even people that don't care about Ms. Marvel at all are going to be hearing about the X-Men music, are going to be hearing, because if you're a fan, then that's going to be in art, that's going to be in things, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to figure out what they're going to do with the X-Men or how the X-Men are going to show up, because that's what more people care about. So, and also, given the fact that I didn't even know who this character was or care at all about this character before the show, you're not, pissing me off because I didn't have a history of that character that I was invested in the first place. You know what I mean?
Well, even the lady who created the character in the comics, she had intended on making her a mutant in the first place, and it got nixed to make it into her into an Inhuman.
We've got enough mutants. In fact, you could say we've got too many mutants. Not in the MCU. I just meant in Marvel.
Well, and again, I mean, there have been so many times where they could have said something about, oh, it's different. You're a mutant. They never used the word mutant, and there were several times when they could have. They very easily could have, and now they finally have used the word, and they didn't even use the word mutant. They
said mutation, and they played the music. But that doesn't even necessarily mean that she actually is it. They could have just been using that to hint. They could be lining up for her to be an Inhuman still. I doubt it.
Yeah, they could just be totally trolling us.
Yeah, because I didn't see any Terrigen Mist type things, but there's always workarounds for that. But and also, I'm a fan of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. I liked the Inhumans in that. The Inhumans TV show, I don't even think I watched it. I just because I saw the stills from it, and I was like, this is pre-production, right? You're just taking a picture of these guys off set, and they're like, no, that's how they're gonna look in the show. And I was like, then that's a show I'm not gonna watch.
Yeah, it was that
was bad.
Yeah,
it was
the only thing good was Black Bolt and Lockjaw. That's it.
And that's what I've heard, and they did
lose his hair off in the first episode.
Oh man, they did bring back Anson Mount.
Yeah.
In Multiverse of Madness to play Black Bolt.
Yeah, that was cool.
So that's interesting, and of course that's another universe and all the multiverse things, blah blah blah. But that does show, at least from the perspective of the people making these films, that the Inhumans are not necessarily just nixed. Like, okay, we're not. They made him a pretty big part of like that group.
Basically, it's almost like maybe it's they exist, just not in this universe that we're in, not in 616. They can exist anywhere else, because I mean the same thing. You are okay. Mutations. We're gonna have mutants. Are we gonna bring back Patrick Stewart to play Professor X again?
Yes, but in a different universe. Look, it's a multiverse. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Did you see who? I don't know.
No. If you're about to bring up some rumor, Debbie, I swear to God, just stop it. Because you're gonna bring up a fan casting rumor, and it's just, of course, it's just a rumor. No, that's something that some asshole made up to get clicks for a meme. But go on, Debbie.
It's Vin Diesel.
It's the guy from the new Resident Evil show, and he was on Fringe.
He plays Moff Gideon.
Oh, that guy. Well, that's even a different fan casting than I've heard.
Giancarlo Esposito.
But
yeah, I can't remember his name.
But that is not at all something that Marvel. He's not been casted, and every time rumors nowadays are literally just things made up by people trying to get clicks.
The only thing, in fact, the only thing X-Men related that's upcoming that's on IMDb right now, because I was actually just looking at it, is the X-Men 97.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's the only I mean, there's nothing in the works. I mean, nothing even in like pre-production to where we can say, oh, well, maybe they're casting right now. No, nothing's even.
We'll find out next week or this weekend.
Yep, this weekend.
Oh, is it D23 this weekend?
No, San Diego Comic-Con.
San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah. So what they're gonna say for D3, we don't know. So we shouldn't expect too much.
As long as I don't care if they recast, like, you don't have to bring in Patrick Stewart for that role. That's fine. But as long as they bring back actual good classic X-Men and like give us some X-Men stuff, that'll be great. Because no offense to Miss Marvel, but if I heard like the X-Men are here and then she showed up, I would be pissed off. I'd be like, what is this?
You think the studio would throw us a bone? They can't just dust off one of the famous X-Men? How about that Potts with the giant pigeon wings? What do those do anyway, huh? Carry him 3 feet off the ground to snatch up the nearest muffin crumb? No.
And that also brings up the point of Deadpool, which is they're making Deadpool 3.
That one is in production.
I am so freaking worried about that movie, but at least Ryan Reynolds is in it. He has done well by the Deadpool name so far. And I think he's going to push for them to make.
I think he's actually writing part of it too, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's part of the team.
He usually does. Mm-hmm. He usually has input in it.
I wouldn't be surprised. And he had some pretty strong things to say at the end of the last Deadpool movie concerning what happens in the future or the past.
Wait, is that you?
Hey, it's me. Don't scratch. Just cleaning up the timelines.
Look, one day your old pal Wade's gonna ask you to get back in the saddle again. And when he does, say yes.
I would only want Hugh Jackman to come back as Wolverine for Deadpool 3.
Mm-hmm.
I would not want him back really in any other case. Maybe a cameo type thing if he decide, but like recast the role of Wolverine, but for Deadpool 3, get Hugh Jackman.
It's gotta be Jackman.
Yes.
I thought he had retired from the role though.
Yeah, well, I think Ryan Reynolds is pretty persuasive and hilarious, and
plus their online shenanigans that they do.
Oh, they're
yes,
hilarious.
they're friends.
Oh my god!
And he got Brad Pitt to be in the second one for a frame. Because he thought, he was like, what would be hilarious is if we could get the most famous actor ever in the movie, but we only put him in for like 2 frames, and then the rest of the time they just have like a guy in a green suit that they CGI out so he's invisible. And that was hilarious and amazing. And apparently they paid Brad Pitt a cup of coffee because he only had to show up once to go. That is hilarious. Vanisher. Oh.
Power dampening collar. Shuts down all mutant abilities. Can't get it off unless you've got a grenade.
Huh. Could have used one of those in the first act.
They keep a monster in the basement. Right next to a huge steaming bowl of foreshadowing.
This guy, Cable, he's very short, 5'11", not like in the comics. And if we succeed, we all go home early.
So you use a device to slide through time. I got 2 charges, one to get me here, one to get me home.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
But the thing about the X-Men is they were always an ensemble. They were always a team. Like the thing with the Avengers is like you have your individual superheroes, and then the Avengers is when they do a team up. The X-Men were always a team. And so you have all these great characters that people really, I think, even if you didn't, if you watched the cartoons and the comics, read the comics, then you're already a huge fan. But I think even with the movies that came out in the late 90s and 2000s with the X-Men series from Fox, I mean, Hugh Jackman made that Wolverine. Patrick Stewart really made that Professor X. And what's his face? And oh my gosh, Magneto, and even the younger versions.
Ian McKellen.
Yeah, so Ian McKellen as old Magneto, and then
Fassbender.
Yeah, Michael Fassbender, Metalbender as the younger Magneto. He did a phenomenal job. First Class, watching him taking revenge on people and force pulling knives. I mean, I know it's metal. They can control metal, but it just seems like the Force when you're doing it like that. That's awesome. They really made those characters great.
I just hope, I hope that they do the X-Men right and don't start with the Dark Phoenix. Please.
Oh, but that's the best thing.
No.
We haven't seen it. We got to do the Dark Phoenix. The first thing we're going to do, now that we've got the X-Men back, is the Dark Phoenix storyline. Speaking of which, there's a person that I'd like to see back on the scene.
Yes.
His casting for Pietro, fantastic. His scenes in like Days of Future Past, where they slow down, and if I could catch time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do. Those scenes are like iconic, and that's how I think show off a speedster well in a movie.
That's the way, because you always see it and it always like blurs the character and they just run real fast and it's like they're right back.
Yeah.
But the way that they did this to where you can actually see it from their perspective as far as what they're experiencing, what they're doing, that made it so much better. I mean, everything was moving just real slow. And even when he was running in some of the scenes, he was running real slow. It was like a slowed down version, but you knew he was moving like,
and then having everyone else basically frozen in time or moving so slowly that it's basically inconsequential is fantastic. The jokes that they play, the gags that they play, the guy who's about to kiss the girl and the girl who's just like and then like just talk, and he throws them and then they move really fast for like a second, but then it kind of starts slowing down.
Time catches back up.
Yeah. But he's still, in his bubble. And so, they kind of used a little bit of that in Eternals with the speedster and that. think they saw how well that worked for that, and they didn't do it to that extent with him, like where there's just a scene where she saves everyone and but some of the close-up shots of like her running and stuff going back, I think they took that. Well, not took it, but saw that it worked well.
That would require me to go back and rewatch the Eternals,
which is not worth it. No. The reason that I remembered that is because when watching the Eternals, I was thinking to myself, "This is god awful." But then every once in a while, she would show up, and I was just like, "Well, at least they did a good job on that." Like there are some things they did a good job on the Eternals, but the story and the plot and how that all fits together was just terrible. Let's not spend any more. Unless Shah, do you want to say anything about the Eternals?
I don't think it was that bad.
It's pretty bad, in my opinion, but everyone can have their own opinion. So.
Too long, too many characters to try and fit in.
Agreed.
Crummy bad guys that just come out of nowhere.
I'm just
12.
What do you say?
Originally, it was supposed to be 12 Eternals.
So even more, yeah.
Oh,
Lord.
About 2 more out.
It's the plot to me was the thing that just every like 20 minutes they would do something that was just completely idiotic as far as the plot goes. And then the whole thing where he was like, and actually these things started coming out of the ice. These deviants started coming out of the ice recently, and I'm like, isn't your whole job to stop them? Why did you think the planet was free of them? If it actually was, and then there's just it's.
And then they were all robots.
And they're all robots.
Sorry, spoilers. The Eternals are all robots.
That's one of the movies that I think spoils itself. Like, what spoiled this movie for me was having to watch it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Eternals. Actually, let's talk about the movie Thor, since that is the latest MCU movie to come out. And there's a lot to talk about. We talked about it last week. We gave some vague thoughts. We didn't want to spoil it. So I'll let you know right now, spoiler alert, because we're going to get into all the details. And what did you think of the film? Anybody?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Debbie just loved it because Chris Hemsworth got his butt shown.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. But no, I thought it was funny. It was hilarious. I want that. Somebody please get that for me, or make me one. I don't care. But yeah, and the fact that, and I thought this before I even seen some stuff on social media, because I thought this during the movie, that this whole movie was in Korg's viewpoint.
He was the narrator.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's, he's this big rock thing, but he's childlike. So that's, a lot of the...
He's Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
He is
exactly.
Taika Waititi saying, "Oh, I can put myself in the movie. Okay, well, my ego is out of control, so let's just throw me into the movie, like an insane amount."
But I think that's why there was so much of it, because so much comedic and
because Taika Waititi, he said that his director's cut. I just read an article. He goes, I don't normally like director's cuts. And, that's because these people are just whatever. Like, my director's cut is 4.5 hours long, and there's like, get up and take a tea break and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, hey, newsflash, it's your cut. That means you didn't cut it down enough. You made a bad director's cut. That doesn't mean other directors are the same way that you are, where you probably just wanted to keep in every single joke you ever made, which there were so much jokes in the thing already. Not that that's even necessarily a bad thing, but how could this movie have been 4 hours?
The
humor?
It was silly. Where is Monty Python? Oh, let's not watch Thor. This is a silly movie. No, it was
just a silly movie.
It was just, I mean, it was joke and joke and joke and joke and joke, and then all of a sudden you got to the one scene where they go to fight. They go to fight Gore the God Butcher, and it got real serious for a minute, and then they got beat, and Jane lost her powers, and she's got cancer, and everything's real serious again for a minute, and then all of a sudden it's happy and funny again, and it's like, it's an Adam Sandler movie. That's exactly what it was. It was an Adam Sandler movie. I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. What did they do to Thor? I was so disappointed. This one ranks barely, of the 4 Thor movies, barely above Dark World to me.
Wow.
Ragnarok being the first, the original Thor being second, this one being third, and Dark World is slight underdog on fourth there.
Shaw, did you get a chance to see it?
Yep, I saw it.
What'd you think of it?
I actually liked it. I mean, I do admit there's a little too many jokes, and we definitely need a little more time with each of the 3 main characters. Like, because we get a good scene with Gore the God Butcher in the beginning, and a good scene at the end, and then everything in the center is just a regular Marvel villain. You know.
Yep.
We need a little more seriousness with Jane for her to be like, dealing with it, and a little more seriousness with Thor. So just like an additional 10 minutes would have done a lot,
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with you, David. I also agree with Debbie. Like, I enjoyed this movie, but there, like David was saying, the humor in places undercut what would have made it a better film. Like, you need to let the serious moments take place seriously. Maybe every once in a while you undercut it with a joke, but not every time. You need to let those moments land. And every time a moment was landing, they're don't worry, there's a joke. Hey, it's all right. Don't worry. Hey, there's another joke. Blah, 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 like nonstop. And if there wasn't a joke, then the goats were just screaming, which was funny in a limited amount.
No, it was funny once.
Every time they do anything with the goats, it's just the goats are screaming. And I'm just like, we get it. Okay? They yell. Bye for all stupids. Mah! Mah! Oh, we're showing up. Mah! We're busting through it. Mah! Okay. Like horses whinny, but they're not constantly whinnying. Yeah. Elephants trumpet, but not every time, every moment. Let me inhale so I can get back to trumpeting. No, that's
the only problem I had with this movie is I was hoping for more gore.
Yes.
And seeing more of him killing gods, because we have really only technically seen him.
He barely killed anyone.
One god, and then we've seen the aftermath of another one.
And really too, and I really wanted to see this, and Luke even said it. He said, didn't we just have Moon Knight? Yes, we did have. Why were there no Egyptian gods in the wherever the crap Zeus was?
Well, there probably was. I mean, we didn't
but you got to push Moon Knight. You got to have some good Egyptian gods in there to say, hey, look, we do Moon Knight too. Now they're all connected.
And it would have been interesting. I mean, especially since they went to and we got Eddie. Eddie, his favorite part was the goats. So look, and that's the thing. I don't dislike the goats. I dislike how much they were drawing from that well, and just like how much they were drawing from the humor well. And that's the thing about this movie, is that it needed more of that juxtaposition, because this movie was all really about juxtaposition. Gods and people, gods and the god killer, saturation of color, no color at all, like that. So you need happiness and sadness, and you need to give enough time to both. We didn't get enough time with Gore. We didn't get enough tragedy of him actually killing gods. We did not get enough of that happening. The one thing that was in the middle that barely gave us another glimpse of Gore was when he was messing with the kids. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, let's get some more of this because that's creepy. It's terrifying. It makes him a much more scary villain that he's just screwing with these kids, especially after his daughter was taken away. And he sees these as the kids of gods. They're Asgardian kids for the most part or whatever. So they're fair game in his book, even though they're just part of a trap that he's setting. But that part where he was messing with those kids, I was like, this is cool. Let's get more of this. But no, we're just going to get more jokes and talk about orgies, which is great for the kids. You know, like they're just like, all right, let's decide where we're going to have our next orgy. And let's flick the clothes off of Thor. And then talk about how, we're not going to save him just quite yet. Oh, well, maybe I'll just, flick your clothes off too. And they're like, no. Wouldn't want to do that. No, because it would be wrong to have women disrobed, but it's fine to do it to that dude over there because that's funny and that's okay. And so, like, what's happening? Why?
I looked at it. Okay, so Ragnarok had the absolute perfect blend of humor and action. I mean, it did very well transitioning from one to the other. And one of the main things I look at is in the first scene of Ragnarok, he's in the cage, he's talking to the skeleton, and then he's talking to Serta, and he's like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm spinning around, hang on, I thought we were connecting. And then all of a sudden he gets Mjolnir, and he starts tearing the place up. I mean, you jump into an action sequence, and it stayed with that action sequence. With this one, you run into the Guardians, and he is on some kind of yoga pose. I'm meditating, and then it's like, oh, well, we need you to save our temple. And he goes, okay, fine, I'll go save the temple. And what does he do? He knocks the temple down. And it was like, okay, I want to see the action. I want to see Thor. I want to see Thor doing what Thor does. I don't want to see Thor given a stand-up routine.
And that's like what half the action even of the beginning was like jokes, like him doing the split between the two things. It's holding it and I'm just like, okay, I get it. He's doing a split. It's like, oh no, we're still doing this joke. Okay. There were some, I'm not saying like, now it sounds like I'm just complaining about the whole thing. There were cool action sequences. A lot of the stuff with Gore was really cool. A lot of the stuff on like the Nega world and the shadow monsters was pretty cool looking. The fights between like Gore and the people that he actually did fight were also pretty cool, especially at the end. And like when Stormbreaker's hitting him and he's like getting up from it, that Necro sword must be crazy. And so let's talk about the Necro sword.
It's a symbiote.
It looked like Jane Foster destroyed it. Sorry, Dr. Jane Foster.
Remember, this is comic books. Things come back.
Well, just like Mjolnir did. So,
yep.
And Thor has Mjolnir back now at the end. The little adopted girl.
Who is very important. She is a daughter of eternity, which means she is very powerful. We're talking more powerful than Franklin Richards. More powerful.
What? Now, what does that mean? Daughter of eternity. Eternity was that being sitting.
Oh, you don't know?
I'm just saying for those who might not. Okay. Eternity was that being sitting in the middle, and it was Gore.
Basically, the most powerful being in Marvel, basically. Almost. I think there's like maybe one or two above him, but he's so powerful he can turn the Infinity Stones off and on again. That's how powerful he is.
And so that girl is his daughter?
Kind of. Basically, I think what happened is he recreated the daughter, but using his power, so it's kind of part of him. So it's the daughter, but it's also part of him. So
okay.
Yeah, because if you noticed when she was walking, her shadow.
Yep.
You could see the, the stars and the galaxy or whatever, the eternity. You could see that reflection. So yeah, she's.
Do you mean when she was walking in the beginning?
No.
At the end.
When she came back.
Okay. And she has laser vision, which I was like, did that come from your mother's side of the family? Like, Gore never did no laser vision. Like, whoa. Was he just...
She has Homelander as an uncle.
And she also, I mean, picked up Stormbreaker there at the end.
I'm gonna make a call on Stormbreaker because a lot of people have held Stormbreaker and have had Stormbreaker.
There's no Stormbreaker.
Huh?
There's no enchantment on Stormbreaker.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
When the first Thor happened, he said, "Whoever possesses the power of Thor can wield Mjolnir," and he threw it down to Earth.
Well, it says, "He who is worthy will have the power of Thor."
Will have the power of Thor. Okay.
Yeah.
There is nothing like that on Stormbreaker. Stormbreaker is its own entity. It was created in the star, and
you do have to be powerful enough to use it, because Thor even mentions that when he's making it. Is like, because Star-Lord's like, why don't we all get one of these weapons? And he was like, oh, it would destroy you to even try and wield such a thing. So,
yeah.
You know, you have to be, I think, a certain rank. But yeah, after that, there's nothing that makes that just Thor's weapon or anything. I mean, it's just a very powerful weapon, just like the lightning bolt. Like, you think, oh, maybe only Zeus can. No, whoever's got it can just do whatever they want with it. So
it's not enchanted.
Keep your hands on your weapons, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. That was exactly the phraseology I was looking for there.
Yep. And I think Thor enchanted the hammer himself so that Jane could use it by the whole wanting to protect her. That was like him accidentally putting an enchantment on it, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the Korg was like, I love that powerful, whatever, can almost become magical. And he says, always protect or help me look out for Jane Foster. And then the seal on the hammer glows. So it's like, that became part of the enchantment.
Mm-hmm.
That was another thing I liked about the movie. Mjolnir's hammer, Jane Foster using it, the broken hammer, having all the pieces do different stuff, like being able to shoot out individual and like control it and bring it back. There was a lot of great moments of that. What'd you guys think of that? Like, near the end where like there was a giant beast attacking her and she had sent all the spikes out, and so she just puts the handle up into the bottom of its jaw, and then all the pieces come back into its head, and it's just like, oh, I was like, oh. So like that was cool. What'd you guys think of Jane Foster wielding Mjolnir? Meow meow.
Interesting. It was good.
I liked it. I was kind of surprised Darcy was there, like at the very beginning, and I'm glad she was only there
for a little bit
at the very beginning. And I love Darcy. I love the character. I love Kat
Jennings. Yep.
Kat Jennings. I love her. But I was at the hindsight.
She was somewhat comic relief for the other movies. You definitely did not need more comic relief in this.
Exactly.
Good God. And she is very much earthbound. She's not a superhero. She is Jane Foster's friend. Well, Jane Foster is now Thor, and she's off growing across the universe. What is Kat Jennings going to be able to contribute in that situation? Why is she there? What is she doing? So no, it made sense to have her there when she was there, and it made sense not to have her there anymore.
Yeah, she was just there for emotional support.
Which is kind of important. It's stage 4 cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Jane's dead. And Thor has a little...
Or is she?
Crazy...
She's in Valhalla. She. Let's face it. She's in heaven. She's dead.
Valkyrie.
She's there. She's there with Lady Sif's arm.
She has ceased living. She is no longer among beings of this planet. But the dead parent.
She becomes Valkyrie.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that when you were saying that she's in Valhalla now, that was another moment in the movie that like I laughed at, but I was like, this is undercutting the seriousness of the moment at hand. When he walks up to Lady Sif and she's on the ground dying or about to die, her arm is cut off, and she's like, no, let me die, I want to go to Valhalla. And he's like, oh, well, you actually have to die in battle, so maybe your arm's in Valhalla. And I'm just like, you do know that your friend is dying. Crack another joke, bro. Like, there is a time for levity and a time to like, hey, this person's had their arm cut off. Unless you're the Black Knight from Monty Python.
It's only a flesh wound.
Yes, it's time to get help.
Hey, let's do get help. What? Get help? No. Come on, you love it. I hate it. It's great. It works every time. It's humiliating. Do you have a better plan? No. We're doing it.
Get help! Please! My brother's dying! Get help! Help him!
Classic. Still hate it? It's humiliating.
No, not for me, it's not.
And so, speaking of that and humor, we've been complaining about the humor. There was just too much, but there were some great moments of humor in this. That the actors, again, Matt Damon as Loki, that whole bit that they do, like that's great. Like keep having stuff like that. But here's the thing, like that should be your comment, and then we'll get back into the serious stuff, and then you can have moments like that. But it's like you go from joke to joke to joke to joke to joke, and it gets a bit much.
And it had Melissa McCarthy in it, and that really.
Well, I thought that was funny because they were purposefully because they were purposefully making Hela a fat dumpy chick as opposed to like looking beautiful like she actually was.
Melissa McCarthy versus Kate Blanchett.
Exactly. Like they're twisting truth when they're telling these things in order to make them look better, which is what a lot of people do in media or theater or things like that. It's like, oh, let's tell the story, but with a creative license.
I think that was another thing that really bugged me about this one was, you know, in Ragnarok, the play of Loki or the tragedy.
It was being done for Loki.
It was being done for Loki, and it wasn't that long. But this one, when they did it, it was like, oh my gosh, are you going to go through the entire movie? Are you going to tell the entire story of Ragnarok? I mean, the first one, okay, 2 or 3 minutes. This one was like 10. I'm like, I found myself going, okay, get off of the play. I'm done. You've cracked enough jokes on the play. I've got it. Move on. Let's move on.
Get it? Remember the last movie?
Remember the last one? Remember what we did? Exactly. Like, there was
a little bit of that. Yeah. And that's what, you know, when I think of Taika Waititi talking about a 4.5 hour long cut, I'm just like, I think you just came up with a bunch of different jokes and just so much stuff. They gave you here. They said, here, Taika, this is the plot that we need to happen. And you said, okay. And then just made a million jokes. And then you cut it. It got cut down to what jokes you could fit into also getting the plot accomplished. And it's like, I think we should have tried for more than that.
I think I was going to say, because the runtime on this one was like right at 2 hours, I think. It was hour 56 or something. So it was right at 2 hours. And honestly, it probably could have been, just based on what was filmed, there was a bunch of stuff that probably could have been cut. Yeah. And it probably could have been trimmed down to an hour 45.
And they did mention that in that extended cut or the other stuff, there were other planets and other fights. And I'm like, maybe some of those should have come into play because that would have given us more gore, which I think is that would have been a big draw and a big help to this film, because like I was talking about, you know, you need your ups and downs, you need your humor, you need your sorrow, you got your hugely saturated God world, you have your black and white necro world. Like you need to balance that. There needs to be a balance in that. It can't just be like too much of one and then not enough of the other. And I think more of Gore actually killing gods and showing what a threat he really is. Because, like you said, he killed like one that we saw.
One that we saw, and one that was like,
oh yeah, that he showed up to afterwards. Yeah. So now, it's like,
and honestly, that may be what has made the other 3 Thor movies so good. Was your main antagonist was Loki in there, Loki has always been Thor's big bad, and he, even though not so much in Ragnarok, I mean, he was kind of behind the scenes, but he was still there. He was still, you knew what he was doing. And with this one, okay, your big bad is in the movie for 20 minutes,
not
15,
enough.
20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a constant threat. He's always just kind of, okay, we're gonna deal with this, and then we'll come deal with this. And again, I think that's what it was missing. I think if Tom Hiddleston had been in it, it might have been better. But Loki's off doing his own thing, so whatever.
Yeah, he's hanging out with Owen Wilson in the time
TVA.
I gotta say, like, Loki, now that I've seen like the other Marvel shows, Loki's gone up like a notch on my belt of like respect. Because I know I give them all crap when they come out. I can't help it. But Loki had some real good moments in there. And I'm interested to see what with Kang and everything. Like, they need to get... That's what everyone's, wondering. Like, what is Phase 4 has more hours of things to watch than Phase 1 and 2 combined already.
Mm-hmm.
You're only halfway.
Yeah, but like nothing. There's more things to watch. It's like, well, quality over quantity. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Kif, we have a conundrum.
I think the TV shows are mainly just to introduce new characters that I think will show up later, and then you don't have to spend time during the big movie trying to explain origins or anything like that. They're doing it. These new characters are going to show up later somewhere down the road. They're doing their origin stories through the TV show so that when we do get to the big events, we don't have to waste time explaining who they are, what their powers are, how they got them, blah, 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 blah. That's my theory.
Interesting. Eddie also was chiming in saying the bad guy should always be the main focus, is what the movie revolves around. And I know what you're talking about, because like, what is a movie? If everything's fine, if there's no conflict, then there's no story. In the beginning, everyone was happy. And then at the end, everyone was happy. And in the middle, everyone was happy. So what happened? Nothing. Everyone was happy. You need that conflict. Like, that's what's causing the problem. So let's spend some time focusing on that problem.
Yeah, I agree, because and this is what upsets me, because Taiki, he said this is the best MCU villain you'll ever see.
And we didn't get to see even that much. And he's now gone. That's the other thing. It's the classic MCU problem, is that now the villain is dead. The only MCU villain still alive that we can bring back at this point is the best. The best one. It's Justin Hammer.
Okay,
he's still alive.
What I'm talking about.
You're starting to think like a CEO, taking out the competition. I like that. You think you're making a problem for me? I'm gonna make a problem for you. I'm gonna be seeing you again real soon.
Bring him back. Armor Wars. Bring back Justin Hammer. We want the hammer dance. We want. Give me my hammer. Speaking of Korg actually doing the narration, that his stories were like a fun thing. I liked when he was like, he lost all kinds of people but it also, again, it made these depressing moments less or like this moments that should make you feel sad. It's like, hey, he lost his father and his sister and his brother again, and again, and yeah, like that was funny. I liked that aspect of it. I thought that was something that you could have kept in there, maybe lessened the humor in some of the parts where people are actually doing stuff, and they still have those breaks where Korg brings the humor in. And I really wish that they'd actually killed Korg. That was another bait and switch.
It kept his face alive.
Well, now and then he regrew everything, and there was like, oh, it turns out the only part of my species that is alive is the mouth. Nah, kill him. Make it have an emotional impact. If no one ever actually dies, yes, something to avenge. But I don't know.
Now he's got to be in his own movies. He's got to go all the way through. He's got to be through the whole thing.
But now, in whatever year this is, the audience wants action and seats with beverage holders, but mainly action.
So what about the other post-credit scene we haven't talked about?
What about it? Go on.
Hercules! What did you guys think?
So Zeus isn't dead either. No one's dead. Gore's probably not dead. Shoot. He'll be the only person that actually died in this freaking movie. Zeus, I'm pretty sure that lightning bolt went through him. Well, actually, it did because it got... Oh, yeah. He's... Whatever. It's fine. Nobody dies. That's what's... But anyway, so he says, we're going to make them fear the gods again. And he's like, do you hear me, my son? Heracles. Or Hercules, or however they're gonna say it.
Hercules.
Okay.
Hercules.
So I'm. This is another one of those things, in my opinion, that should not have been done, because now you're introducing more characters that are going to need to be dealt with in future movies. But if those future movies, for some reason, don't happen, you're just like, okay, well, where did Hercules go? Because
you mean like at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, where Adam Warlock?
Yeah.
What'd you say? Guardians. It's already cast.
Yep. So he's gonna be in the third. But that was like so long ago. It's
Well, and I mean, even going as far as the Black Knight, when the Black Knight was introduced. And you had Blade in the background. Are you sure you want to do that? And it's like, okay, that's all well and good. Now we know Blade's getting his own show, but what are you going to do with this Black Knight character?
What's the matter? You missed that? It's okay, I can do it again.
Like he's like, you have 20 guys around him. I was there, man. He's got shitty throws at you. Then you like the sword.
Yeah, you got the sword.
Exactly.
Shit, you throw it in the air, catch it underneath.
Exactly.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Blade. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Blade, but it's again, it's the same thing. It's like,
it's the same.
What do you great? Seeing Blade actually, or like getting more than just, and it's like, oh well, you better tune in next time. It's like I didn't even like tuning in this time. If we're talking about the Eternals, it's like
even in Hawkeye, the swordsman was like, okay, you've introduced another character from the comics. What are you going to do with it now? He doesn't. Does he fit into the grand scheme of things, or is this just?
I think it was just an Easter egg.
Where hey, look what we did. Here's the boner alert. Hey, look, here's Quicksilver.
They're putting pieces on the table. Yeah,
that's to have you look over here while we're doing something over here.
Yeah, and it's a similar thing that like things like Star Wars nowadays do with member berries. It's that it's like, oh, remember that? Well, with Marvel fans, it's like, oh, get ready for this, and but does it actually bring any substance into the story you're telling?
Exactly. Is it going to bring anything?
But
shut up and take my money.
Yeah. What's his name at the end of the Eternals? I can't even think of the guy's name.
Starfox?
Yeah, Oh yeah, Star Fox. I got to remember that.
Thanos' brother.
barrel roll.
Yeah. You don't look much like Thanos. That's a whole different thing. Anyway, we're over an hour and 10 minutes already. So, anything else on Miss Marvel or Thor while we're still here, supposedly talking about those films and whatnot? Anything else?
I like Miss Marvel. I think Miss Marvel is my favorite of the shows so far, and I really
favorite.
And honestly, like I said,
that's surprising.
I really did not care about the character at all. I was just like, oh, okay, fine, Miss Marvel, whatever. And for some reason, that whole show has clicked all the right buttons for me. So I don't know why. I can't explain it. It's
do you think it has anything to do? And I could be totally off here, but the fact that it is the only show. I mean, Moon Knight, kind of, where it's really an origin story.
Maybe, yeah.
And Moon Knight was like that, but also it wasn't. It was him finding out that he is Moon Knight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he had an alternate personality that was already doing all that stuff. It was just him discovering he was already doing it.
But we did find out how it came about, though, during the show.
But this one, it's really like, okay, this is what happened that made you this thing, and you have to try and go along with it, as opposed to just like, let that other personality take over. He's good at this. Yeah.
And then too, with this one, like, I remember several episodes with Moon Knight. Maybe it was just one, but we would come back and go, okay, so is Moon Knight actually going to be in Moon Knight, or is this strictly just we didn't really have any of that because she was always doing something. So
yeah, so maybe that was it. But I think that is it for us here tonight on MCU Mondays. I want to thank Debbie, as always, my co-host, keeping me in line.
No.
Who would do it?
I will be talking for myself. This is an open and shut case, and anybody who can't see that is a savage and an idiot.
Okay.
Yeah. David, thank you for joining us. And I want to thank Shah, especially member of the Geek Gauntlet podcast. Make sure to look that up. Thank you, Shah, for being with us here tonight.
It was a good time.
We appreciate it. And we will be back next Monday for more MCU Mondays at 9:30 Eastern. Remember, you can also catch the Star Wars Cantina Happy Hour on Thursday nights at 9:30 Eastern. So Monday for Marvel, Thursday for Star Wars, and we will see you next time. Good night, Eddie. Good night, everyone.
Thor, what do you know?
Is he asleep?
No. I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Shit! Language. Wait a second. No one else is going to deal with the fact that Cap just said language? Just slipped out.
Find the scepter.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
You bet your ass.
Steve, you said a bad language word.
Did you tell everyone about that?
The Hero's imprint.
Out with the platinum bastard.
Steve doesn't like that kind of talk.
You know what, Romanoff?